Hello, beautiful ladies. Welcome to another Wamen Hour, and I'm joined tonight by the ever beautiful Helen, also known as the wife of David Distributist, but also known to our audience as someone who's been on before. So thanks for joining us.
Hi, nice to see you again.
Yeah, great to see you. And how's your kid doing? You've got a slightly older child now, haven't you? Not really a baby anymore.
He's 3. He's in preschool right now.
Great. Thank you for joining us. I know you've got a busy schedule. And Birdie on camera again, so we can see your beautiful face.
Good evening. Yes, cozy maxing again. I've got the fire in. No lipstick this week, though, so...
No, I love the fire. It's great. And tonight, this is just a topic that I chose. I really wanted to make a video about this, and I still might if there's some ideas in this that come up as a result of this conversation that would go well in a video, but it's just so difficult to make videos these days for me. I thought I'll open it up to you ladies and whatever other ladies might drop by in the stream. I won't make any promises, but we might expect some more guests and see what you guys think, and we'll see what the audience think, because I am really interested in this topic, and it's been in the public consciousness recently. I don't know how many of the AI voice generated sort of audio clips that if you've heard those, but there's it's just another leap forward in terms of what AI is capable of doing, replicating well-known human voices in a somewhat convincing manner, only slightly sort of wooden delivery of ones I've heard include Joe Biden, Joe Rogan. I've heard a lot of I've heard J.K. Rowling's voice replicated, and all of them sound quite good. It just kind of sounds like they're reading from a script, not quite speaking naturally, but it doesn't sound like an AI or a robot. But it's quite clear that AI is going to be making big leaps forward like this in the next few years, and it could really end up changing a lot of how we sort of perceive not just entertainment but also information that we get. You might be able to see a video of Joe Biden saying something that he didn't say, right? So in terms of fake news, we're getting ever closer to being indistinguishable from reality. And more than that, I guess I'm concerned about the user-generated experience. So now what I'm seeing from these AI-generated voice clips is that people are taking their favorite video game character or celebrity and getting them to say anything, right? and you can basically use this to make your own voice acting for a video game. But unsurprisingly, a lot of people have been using this for pornography, right? They want to have a hot actress saying that their own things that correspond to their own particular preferences sexually, and it seems to me that entertainment these days and social media as well, there's a lot of input from the end user, so that everyone's particular feed, let's say on TikTok or Instagram or Twitter, is especially catered to that one individual person. It's not like anyone else's feed on Earth. They're getting their own experience, and the algorithm is learning what they want to see, what they want to watch, and just feeding them more of that to get them to stay. And this is something that we've been seeing for ages, since I think YouTube was one of the first services that did this, and you could see that that's what was happening, and that there are lots of concerns over what the algorithm was leading people to, for instance. But I think more than that, I'm worried that it's just becoming too good at keeping us like addicted to our phones, our computers, getting us to stop participating in the activities that we really want to be spending our life doing, reading books, doing crafts, seeing other people in real life, cleaning our house, going to sleep at a normal a time of night, getting enough sleep. All these things that people want for their own lives, that would make their lives better by their own standards, but they time and time again go back to, and I say they, but I'm talking about myself as well. We just go back to what is the easiest, sort of most lazy way I can spend my time right now. Like I keep reaching compulsively for my phone to check the latest Twitter feed, see how many likes I've got on my latest banger of a tweet, checking the YouTube comments, or checking my this or my that. To Birdie's doing it now, I can see. And it's not what we, nobody's going to look back on their life on their deathbed and say like, oh, I'm so glad that I read 10,000 tweets in my lifetime. When really what you want, I want to read like 10,000 tweets worth of novels, really, or like or on nonfiction, or I want to talk to someone I know in real life. There's things I want to be doing with my life that I'm not doing because my phone is so good at keeping my eyes stuck to it. And I think it's just going to get better and better at doing that. And that's what worries me. So that's my topic. And I do have a super chat, but after I read the super chat, I want to throw it over to you guys. What do you think of that? How is this something that you struggle with? Do you have ways of coping with it? What do you think? I'm going to read this first. From Port Film Co-op, we have, if social media was horrendous for women, imagine how bad AI will be. Men and women need to make some hard choices about boycotting this technology. Well, that's one solution. Helen, what do you have to say?
Well, I think in order to stop people from getting so hooked on their phones is you have to convince them first that life is a lot better than what their devices are offering them. And that's the real tricky part. The reason why people aren't changing their habits is because they're too comfortable. They've become too complacent. And how can you tell them that the time it takes to read a novel, that the days or even weeks to read a novel is far more fulfilling to them than the instant ping of their tweet? And I'm not sure how to explain that to somebody. It's like something someone has to learn on their own. That I know it sounds a bit Jordan Peterson-y, but when you have exterior responsibilities in your life, it kind of makes it difficult for you to become hooked on these things because of the consequences of not fulfilling those responsibilities. So that's the first thing that comes to mind for me.
Yeah, so the more you have in your life that sort of that you have to attend to, the harder it becomes to waste your time. I definitely feel that with being busy, just keeps me busy during the day, and then I'm so exhausted at nighttime I can't. I just have to go to sleep immediately. There's no time to spend wasting my time in the evening. Birdie, I know you're a very productive woman. You work several jobs, and you're very crafty. Not sly. I mean that you create craft. How do you manage it? Is it something you struggle with, or are you just naturally productive?
No, I think it is something I struggle with. I'm terrible for scrolling through my phone. At the first thing in the morning, first thing I do is check my phone. I know a lot of us are very guilty of that. You see the notifications and you want to know what they are. The one thing I've definitely been better at, especially more recently, is I put my phone on silent, which I know is not always a good thing, but I usually know when I'm expecting a phone call. As you say, Po, I do have a very busy life, so my phone calls are unfortunately usually scheduled. My friends will text me and say, "Oh, are you free on such and such a day for a phone call?" Or emails, etc. So I do leave my phone on silent. In terms of scrolling through social media, I'm not as bad. Most people know I don't scroll through Twitter very much. I'll probably scroll through maybe an hour in the evening. But it's really weird, to be honest. I mean, the way of coping with it is getting harder, I think, as you say, Helen. People are getting too comfortable. But I think the main thing as well is people need to be able to feel comfortable in their own surroundings. So, in terms of liking your surroundings more, being in your current surroundings instead of being immersed in some lovely video or photograph on your phone, go and look outside. The chances are there's going to be something just as lovely outside your window. And before the chat starts having a go at me of, oh, but I live in a city, there still are places in cities. There are parks, there are gardens, there are still places to go and you don't even have to go anywhere. Just look out your window, look at the sky, instead of sitting on your phone constantly. And I think that again is becoming more of a problem because of the advance of technology. Cameras are getting better, filmware are getting better. So all of these lovely videos you see on TikTok and on YouTube, etc., of just these drones going out, and you've probably seen them, adverts use them quite a lot now, of picturing these lovely coastal scenes or just through the woods or videoing animals, etc. Yeah, they're great to watch, but in my head, they're not real because you're just watching them on a screen. Whereas I prefer to watch the birds out the window. That to me is far more exciting than watching it on a screen.
Well, you say that, and yeah, when you said something like an hour a day, that sounds like an hour you could be spending doing something.
Oh, yeah.
better.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, the thing is that these things are not without worth. I meet all my women's hour panelists come from Twitter mostly, and from YouTube and from my emails. So it's not like these things are a complete waste of time. I kind of visualize it like a peak and it dying off, where the first 5 minutes you spend on Twitter are the best, and then the rest of it are kind of like you keep sort of chasing better and better content, but actually it's just getting worse the longer you scroll because the algorithm's like front loading all the best stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's quite hard as well because, well, as you say, algorithms, they do try and make themselves fitting to your specific views. So if you're liking certain content, they're going to keep showing you that content.
Or on TikTok, it's just if you watch it for more than like 4 seconds, like the longer you watch it, the more they'll show you stuff like that. And it could be stuff that you like, or it could be stuff that makes you angry, or things.
I mean, I think that's definitely a rabbit hole that you could go down, is hate watching things. It's definitely not something I would advise. So don't hate watch things just for the sake of it. It is. That again is something really bad. We know how bad it is to scroll through your phone constantly, how bad it is to hate watch things. It stresses you out, etc. That's worse for you than just scrolling through a lovely video of somebody making bread,
Birdie brought up a really great point, though, that I kind of want to explore further about that people need to become more comfortable in their own surroundings in order to break themselves away from their phone. Although sometimes I feel like people are hooked on their phone because their surroundings are so uncomfortable that they have to escape that. And I'm kind of wondering, what do you think is so uncomfortable about the outside that makes people want to escape into their phones? And another contradiction is like you escape into your phone to avoid the discomforts, but we end up wanting to look at uncomfortable things in our phone, right? Like fights or some racism thing or something like that.
Yeah.
So why do you think people are hiding into their, do you think they are hiding into their phones, or that they're just making a poor comparison between which world is better?
I think it's a mixture of the two. I mean, I think we touched on it briefly on a previous Women's Hour. A lot of people hide behind their screens. So instead of somebody, abusing somebody in person, they'll just do it online because they think they can get away with it. Instead of, I mean, as soon as you said, oh, what are people afraid of going outside? My instant reaction was people, that I instantly went to people. People they don't want to interact with others anymore. They think it's unnatural. They're afraid they're just going to get backlash because people just aren't nice to each other anymore. It's very rare now to even walk down your street and say hello with every single person saying hello back or even smiling back. There aren't many places like that anymore. And that is something that is very rare, and they just shouldn't do it. So people look online and see all these stories, and because let's face it, unless you look for it, the things that Twitter, the news, anything like that shows us, it's not good things. It's always bloodshed and tears and war and crime, and it's just hate constantly. So if that's what the media is portraying to you as what outside is being like, you're not going to want to go outside unless you physically know that's not actually what it's like. So making that jump is quite large.
Yeah, I think that really hits on exactly what is happening, that it's not like entertainment or joy or beauty that you're really searching for, but it's more just it's more compulsive than that, where you're not doing it to bring yourself joy. It's like it's just something to do, like something you can interact with. It's something to fiddle with. You can look at the screen and it's just like stimulus.
Yeah.
Like it's not good or bad even. It's just something that you can scroll, something that you can like, something you can respond to. And that's really the worst thing about it. And Helen, I see the piano behind you, and it reminded me of like how many people are there who want to, not just reading novels, but who want to learn a musical instrument or who want to learn a foreign language, and that's something that you can interact with and do. But it's difficult, right? So sometimes, I play the piano, and if I play something that's that I'm doing well at and that sounds nice when I play it, I keep playing and I want to keep playing it. It's compulsive in that way that scrolling through Twitter is. But the thing is, when I'm learning a new piece and it's just really hard, and when I play it, it sounds bad, and I just want to stop. I just want to reach for my phone, because the phone, it's like it doesn't judge me. Like there's no way to scroll through Twitter wrong. You just keep doing it and keep doing it. And even though the thing that comes up isn't always good, it's almost like it's like just something to do that can't go wrong. Like it's something I'm good at almost. It feels like I'm good at it, but I'm not really.
Yeah.
Right. This delayed gratification too is kind of a dying art as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And adding on to both of those points, in terms of having something to do, Poe, I mean, I'm sat here fiddling with a pen and drinking tea because I always have to have something to do. I'm terrible. I physically cannot sit and watch a movie the whole way through without doing something. I can't sit and watch a stream the whole way through without doing something. That, for me, I found is something actually on my side, in terms of I cannot physically sit on YouTube all day, watch videos, etc., because I'll put on a podcast or a stream in the background whilst I'm doing something. I think that's a very good little sort of niche to learn. If you don't do it already, it's a very good sort of easy step to make. So even if you're just doing some paperwork or a boring job, or even if you're learning a new skill, having something on in the background that you are so used to, that you're so used to doing, that you find very easy. So even if that is just listening to a video or even having a film on, anything like that, then have it on in the background whilst you're learning something.
Yeah, I think that's really popular these days. And I think that's why podcasts have become such a popular medium, is that even, music used to be the thing people used to listen to on their CD. But once you listen to the CD, you can go back and listen to it again, but it never gets new. And even with music, I think it's become less popular to do that than, or rather, there's a niche that's opened up for podcasts, because it's always new. Like there's a new one every week. Subscribe to Polar Person for Wamen Hour. But there's a massive market for that. People who are walking, they're commuting, or they're doing housework, and they want to do, like, it sounds like, oh yeah, I'm immersing myself in this 2-hour podcast about the history of Rome. That sounds really enriching, and it is. But you're only doing that because you're still taking you out of that moment where you're washing dishes or you're on a treadmill. Things that are actually quite boring. But to come back to what you said about listening to the birds or looking at nature, I wonder how many people have had the experience of going for a walk or walking somewhere, and your phone runs out of battery or your headphones break, and you just like, oh, I've got to listen to my bloody footsteps and the cars going past. And if you live in an even remotely nice area, I feel like you'll be surprised at how entertaining it is just to have a look around, look at the people walking past, like listen, like there's actually birds out. It's a really pleasant sound. If you live in a city, maybe not. Maybe better just to put your History of Rome podcast on.
Even so, there's another about, and if your phone runs out, then okay, fine. In my head, my phone is for emergencies and for people to get hold of me when they need to. But even like if you're going out with your mates, if you're going to the pub or whatever, don't take your phone or turn it off. You don't need it. The only reason you need it is if you're in an emergency or if you physically have to get hold of somebody. I mean, the main reason I take my phone to places now is to show people photos of things. It's like, oh, here's a bird I photoed the other day, something really random. But even if you're just walking down the street, as you say, Poe, either specifically, I think a lot of it is about being strict with yourself. So either specifically don't answer your phone, put a podcast in, or tune your hearing to something else. And I know there are so many autists out there who are very capable of doing this. I can't do it myself. I know Alex can. He can have about three things sounding at the same time. He'll have a video on and his game on and some sort of podcast on at the same time, and somehow be listening to all of them, and it drives me insane. But you can tune your hearing to only listen to one thing, so you can cut other things out. So cut out the sound of traffic and tune in on that saxophonist in the middle of the square. You know, there are certain things that can make even a walk in the city much more pleasurable instead of staring at your phone 24/7.
Yeah, I lost my train of thought there. Helen, what's your go-to on-the-go entertainment?
My on-the-go entertainment? Well, when I drive, I need to listen to music. But when I walk anywhere, I've never listened to anything while walking, even if it's walking for a chore, because it's more a matter of practicality. If I'm not listening to my surroundings, I will bump into somebody. I'll get run over by a car. I will do something like that. So it's really a safety thing of being aware of my surroundings. So. But I had a thought spring up in the last couple of minutes. Like I have a son, and we're talking about doing things that take a long time to do, like learning an instrument, or Poe, you mentioned a foreign language. And when my son grows up, and he's going to be looking at all of this, all of these social media outlets, and he sees those images, I want him to look at something that I want him to aspire to. And I feel like not a lot is being offered for people to look at and be like, oh, I wish I could speak that language. Oh, I wish I could play the violin like that. And then open your world that way and kind of entice you to want to gain that skill. So, I mean, I don't really have a question.
TikTok dances?
I'm worried. What was that?
There's TikTok dances all the kids are doing.
Oh, Christ. No, I'm not even on TikTok.
No, I completely agree with you, Helen.
I'd be very disappointed if he was doing dancing on TikTok. My stomach would flip. I mean, I would want him to do something artistic for sure, but I mean, how am I going to raise my son to expose him to things to aspire to do when we're really just being fed trash all day? We're drowning in information and learning nothing, right? Like, what do you suggest?
No, I think it's very important, as I said earlier, that you have to search for these things, and it's very important as well to use it as a tool instead of showing up and clicking on your TikTok or your YouTube and just watching what it shows you. No, what do you actually want to watch? Think, what do you want to learn? What do you want to see? And then physically search it. I mean, I think I broke TikTok because my TikTok now will just show me craft videos, baking videos. And the other day it showed up with steam engines, which of course Alex absolutely loved and I just found hilarious. So I don't get these weird dances or anything on my TikTok anymore, purely because I have been searching for things that I want to see. And it's the same with YouTube, tailoring videos, etc., gardening videos. Anything that you want to see, use the internet as a whole, social media, the internet, everything, as a tool. So even down to the people you follow. If there is somebody in specific that you found an interest in, whether it's an artist or musician or anything like that, then follow them, see what they're up to. And then guaranteed they've got people they know who you can then move forward, you can follow them. So then your feed gradually becomes something you want to see. I'm not saying it's going to rule out every single video.
You can avoid the algorithm altogether and just sign in on incognito mode, and then you never ever get algorithm things. You're a new person every time you sign in.
Yeah, I'll do that. That's so much easier. You just have to, definitely use it as a tool.
Okay. It's funny to see on the YouTube algorithm. There's a minority of people, but they do exist, who find my videos not by subscribing or by going through the algorithm, but they go to the search box and they type in Poe the person, enter, like, I wonder what she's up to. There are people out there who they don't let the algorithm decide what they want, or even sign in and use the subscribe button. They would rather use YouTube without signing in and just look for the people they want to see,
Yeah,
which I find kind of
think
endearing.
that's fine. Yeah, I find that absolutely fine. And I mean, I'm in that weird generation when sort of anything on the internet or computers was kind of at that weird just beginning stage. So, you know, in school, everything was still on paper, but then when we had IT lessons, you know, so we had to learn how to use everything. And it was very, very weird. And I think that has kind of helped now, because I mean, I'm nowhere near a tech whiz. I have to ask Cal's multiple times on what I'm doing, and I've broken something on my laptop, so I have to rope somebody in to help me fix it. But because of that as well, I was kind of always brought up to use the internet as a tool. So if I haven't got it in a book, then the next thing I will do is Google it. If I can't find it on Google, I will then YouTube it. You know, YouTube is full of millions of videos. If you don't know how to make something, YouTube it, Google it. If you need, I'm more of a practical person, so I need to be physically shown how to do something. Again, YouTube. It's so much easier to use it as something to help you in life. I mean, again, even if you have it on in the background, if you want to learn how to plant tulips, you know, that's not something you necessarily have to watch. You can just have it on in the background whilst you're doing your dishes. And you know, like we were saying earlier, have a podcast on, have anything you want to learn on, because you'd be amazed how much information does actually go in without you even realizing.
You know, I think people used to use TV like that, and they still do actually.
Yeah.
People I know who have a TV, and it's just adverts all the time. And people who have a TV, they just complain that there's nothing to watch. And as annoying as YouTube can be, and as completely inane as the algorithm can be sometimes, I think YouTube is still miles streets ahead of television. Like, I think once the older generation who still have a television and watch it have died, there's no coming back from television. It's all on demand streaming and YouTube. Like, there's like, why would you watch like one episode of something a week, or something you actually like, diluted among like 5 other shows that you only kind of are interested in, when you can just watch the thing that you want back-to-back episodes of, for as long as you want, stopping and pausing it, all of that.
I think it's very easy as well to fall into that I'm going to binge watch a series, because I think we've all done it. Netflix will just keep playing and keep playing and it'll just go on to the next episode and you just keep watching it. One thing I think they should bring back are documentaries. You do have the rare ones on telly, but I mean, me and Alex will sit of an evening and watch the old documentaries from the 60s, and they are great. You know, they're just
I think you're right. But if you documentaries are one of the few art forms that I think are actually getting better recently. If you see the latest like BBC nature documentaries, the technology for like video, recording, filming the animals and the landscapes and everything, that is getting so much better that it actually has improved those shows. And they weave like really interesting narratives and interesting information about animals and ecosystems that you've never heard of before. I definitely recommend watching those.
And I think again,
the new ones are still worth it.
The technology as well, is in terms of scientific technology. They're able to. I don't know if anyone's seen the Drain the Oceans ones, but that one could be quite interesting. They basically, as it sounds, they use sonar to see what's on the bottom of a certain area, and they will drain the oceans back so you can physically see it. But then they will also go into what that ship was, what it was used for, where it came from, etc., etc. So it is quite in depth, and it is quite interesting to physically see it. But then they also do it for landscapes that have been lost to time, etc. So in terms of documentaries now, there are less of them, but they are of higher quality, definitely. But I do think documentaries now as well are relying very heavily on all of this technology, whereas the ones back in the 50s and 60s are, right, here's a steam engine, this is what it does. And it was exactly this is a guy, I'll tweet a documentary we watched last night, actually, which is very, very sweet. And it was just about a lad in the Navy who docked at Plymouth, and it was just called A Weekend Ashore. And it was just showing the local area and how he got about without driving or anything, and it was just a little bit of history about each place, and that to me I loved. It was brilliant. So I will tweet that later for those who are interested. But things like that, I think, are very important and should not be lost.
What I'm really interested in this topic is that things like that. It's like something you hear about a TV show, you think that sounds entertaining and like it'll enrich my, like I'll learn something. This is the kind of thing that I'd like to spend my time watching. And yet a lot of people won't watch it, and they'll just watch the equivalent times worth of TikTok videos or YouTube. So there's this concept in psychology where there's the self that you want to be, like the things that you want for yourself in the long term, and then there's the self that actually does the choosing, who is much more capricious and very biased towards what is easily available. So the thing that is right directly in front of you now, that is going to give you that little bit of dopamine hit, is always going to be much more attractive to that version of you who's doing the choosing in the moment, compared to the I think I'll sit down with my my Japanese textbook and try to teach myself Japanese for 15 minutes, so that I'll, like we said, delayed gratification, so that in a year I might be able to speak Japanese. Like that would be something I'd really like to be able to do in a year. But right now, I don't want to. Like this, that's kind of not very rewarding right now.
It's like dieting.
Just a quick point on that. There's a lot of apps and things about as well now. So being glued to your phone, if you want to learn something, instead of, as you say, picking up a book and learning it, there are apps to do that. I wouldn't say it's nowhere near the same level, I wouldn't think, of education. So, teaching yourself something, I think that's great. If you've taught yourself piano, if you've taught yourself Japanese, I will have so much more and a higher regard for you than if you say, oh, I learned Japanese on Duolingo or a random app I found on my phone. That to me, I'm like, oh, okay. I don't see that as any kind of high regard. And again, you're glued to a screen. I feel like there isn't actually much effort being put into that.
Well, I got Duolingo to learn Korean.
Sorry,
I go to Korea periodically, and for a while it worked because it was something I could just go to multiple times a day, and just they make it into a game, like so that you can win points and unlock things. And they were really doing their best, but at the end of the day, it is just difficult, right? And at a certain point, my skill was not matching the level that I was supposed to be at to learn the new words that they were giving me, and I just stopped being able to sort of take it in. It stopped being fun, and I stopped doing it. So even an app that's trying its best to be a phone game that's as addictive and rewarding as possible, there's a huge meme of the Duolingo bird, that little owl icon. If you don't do your 15 minutes a day or whatever it is, the bird comes up in the notifications and says where have you been? Like, you're not doing your homework. Like, I know what's going on. You just don't feel like it. Like, it's okay. You can still come back. No shame. And like the notifications get more and more urgent. Like, you haven't learned Korean for 30 days. What have you been doing? I know you haven't been. I know you haven't been studying for your thesis. You haven't been playing piano. You lazy. So and so.
I think part of that is discipline as well, because you get these little notifications and they're like, "Oh no, it's okay, no shame." And I'm like, "No, there should be shame. There should be shame." The only way you're going to learn something or do something is if somebody is telling you that's not okay to sit around and scroll on your phone all day. You're not doing anything. Whereas the internet or just, little notifications, because I've had them, I think we've all done it, even on games and things, it will pop up with a little notification like, oh, it's okay, you can just come back later, or oh, it's okay if you're doing something else. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's not okay. Go. If somebody physically told me, no, that is not okay, why haven't you done it yet? And you physically do not have an answer, I'd feel bad and I'd want to go and do it. So bring back the shame, Poe.
my husband came up with a brilliant business idea, and he hasn't made it yet. So I think his time has run out. So if anyone wants to make it, please give me a royalty. But legally, I don't think I have a right to demand it. But the business idea is that you pay for the app like £5 a month, and you can get all of that money back. You don't have to spend any of the money if you just do the practice every day. So every day you do the practice and you earn a bit more of that £5 back. And people will sign up for this app thinking, oh yeah, I'm definitely going to get all my money back. But you'd make millions because people wouldn't do it. Even for their own, to win their own money back, they still wouldn't do it eventually because they're just just too lazy. It's just not fun learning Korean, to be honest. When there's not someone there to speak to you in real life and teach you.
Again, that's something that it links into that. I find it easier and better to either learn or just talk to people. If you're doing something on your own, it's a lot harder. Whereas if somebody is doing that with you, you've got the support from each other. And even if that's just, again, like, oh, I'm growing this for the first time this year, if you use online as a tool, you can then talk to other people who are doing it and then get support from them. So you're not using it as kind of, oh, I'm going to stick to this, because they're going outside, they're doing that, and then they're sharing their progress with you. So I think that's another way of using any online platform as a good thing.
Comparatively, there's nothing as effective as physically being in a classroom, because you were talking about shame, and I'm like, if a little owl on my phone is trying to shame me, it's like, if a tree falls down in the woods and no one's around, can anyone hear it? It's like
just ones and zeros, owl.
If a little owl scolds me on my phone and no one's around, am I really ashamed? Right? Whereas in a classroom, if a teacher looks at you in front of the whole class, I'm like, why didn't you do this? Right? And also another tangent, learning style. I tried Duolingo to learn Spanish and I just couldn't do it. I need books. I need to write it down. I need to conjugate verbs. I need flashcards. And also the gratification of getting a permanently good grade in a class that I can show off for the rest of my life, right? With these phones, it's just, there's no one around for pressure. You have to look for people to, give you that pressure online as well. And I'm actually, right now I'm training to be a school teacher. So this has really been on my mind. And like, how are you able to demonstrate that you've actually learned something if you are not going out there and applying everything that you've learned as well? So I think it's another trap, and I think it's very ineffective as well, having all these things on the phone.
I completely agree with you. And just quickly note on that, in terms of, if you're learning something, if you're not applying it to your daily life, then how am I supposed to know that you've learned that? When people say, oh, I read this book, and I'm like, okay, now what? You kind of sit there and it's like, if you're reading something, if you're reading, I don't know, Plato, then show me how that can be applied in real life. I like reading books, don't get me wrong, but they're the kind of books that you can't apply to real life, so those I like to read before bed, instead of flicking through my phone. That's the sort of thing I would do. Some people would also say that was just as toxic as scrolling through your phone. I don't agree with that at all. I think reading a book is obviously better than scrolling through your phone. Whereas some people will sit on, let's say, Duolingo or something like that and say, oh, well, I'm learning something before I go to bed, instead of just doing something that you enjoy. So there's that weird balance of, but if you're doing something you enjoy and that involves flicking through your phone, but my version of that is reading a book, neither of which are doing anything.
It's very passive. I
think it depends what kind of book, but I think that there's a part of human nature, and maybe this is just hopelessly naive, but there is a part of human nature that has a natural curiosity that experiences enjoyment when you learn something new. Or if with reading something like a novel, it's really hard to really quantify exactly what you're learning. But I think there is something gained that enriches the soul and actually experiences joy at that acquiring of maybe more wisdom than knowledge. When you're reading a good book, that is. And thinking about this human nature that has like certain hungers for like what is the input that your brain is actually wanting. It really is one of the id, the most instinctive part of our brain. It seems like has the worst impulses. In some cases, it might not be too bad, but to use the analogy of food, I don't think that there's a national conspiracy to poison people with junk food. It's just that our natural appetite is to seek out things that are high in calorie density, because those are actually the foods that would be best for us in a very scarce society. Like, you actually need those calories to live, to grow your brain, to grow your muscles, and your to fill you up. Sugar and fat are actually good for you in a context where there is very little sugar and fat to go around. So our hunger for those things is not regulated at all. You can just continue to consume these, not infinitely, but your hunger for them is quite. There's no like seatbelt on that. There's no brakes on that train. And I think similarly, there's a human desire for like the the morbid curiosity to see things that are horrible, to see things that make us like outraged, to be aware of what is happening in our social group, who's doing bad things to who, who is who's done something good, or like it's hard to really put it into an analogous situation for how we live now, which is so completely removed. But you can imagine, like,
it's a survival instinct, I think.
Yeah,
to be aware of the dangers.
But the instincts have not led us to a good place. Like I think TikTok is the junk food of entertainment, of social interaction, where at some point it may have been beneficial for human societies to enjoy watching other people dancing. There is something enjoyable in that, right? to see like some people dancing, to learn the same dance as them. For example, or just to see people talking. People enjoy company of other people. So when you see a video of someone talking, that's more interesting than seeing, I don't know, it's a still image of some grass growing.
Yeah,
it's
complex.
I've seen people say that TikTok was specifically designed, like the algorithm of TikTok is designed to negatively impact the users because it's designed by China, and they're trying to sort of bring down the West from using entertainment. And the Chinese version of TikTok, this seems to be actually true. It's much more heavily censored, and the algorithm is steered towards things like patriotism and much more kind of aspirational content, where it's trying to teach people good values, because they're China are not shy about social engineering their own people in that way, and they're doing the opposite to every other country on earth by trying to bring them down to the absolute lowest form of gawking at freaks on TikTok, these degenerate dancers, and just the time wasting and brain rotting content that we're all very familiar with. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think it's just that the human soul is in the moment. The impulsive part of the brain is not very good at choosing good things. It doesn't choose the same things as the higher reasoning that wants the best thing for us in the long term. The short term us wants the best thing in the short term, which is what is the most entertaining things I can put in front of my eyeballs right now.
Yeah, I think that is becoming more and more common in terms of algorithms not being able to be changed to your specific wants. But there was a comment I wanted to touch on just from earlier back. I don't know if you'll be able to find it, but it was somebody said that he was questioning why it was better to learn from a book than it was online. And I just wanted to clarify that it's not necessarily. Again, that comes back to using online as a tool, using it to learn. That is what I would prefer people to do. What we're against here is people scrolling through crap online, scrolling through ridiculous videos, and
people know when they're doing it. Like they can, you can tell when you're not having fun, but you still can't stop.
Yeah,
that's like, you know when you're eating chicken nuggets that they're not good for you.
But I think, again, when you're doing this, it's not something you've searched for. You haven't physically searched for anything. You've just opened the app and started scrolling. You haven't physically looked for what you want to see, what you want to learn. You've just sat there, you've opened it up, and you've scrolled because it's the easiest thing to do. It's a similar thing to, if you go back to the 50s, of picking up women's magazine and scrolling through random stuff because it's easy. That's just what you did. It's the same sort of thing. You haven't physically searched through it, but that magazine was in front of you, so you pick it up and you start looking through it. It's easy and it's convenient, and that's what we need to get out of. That's a cycle we need to get out of. Just because it's convenient, it doesn't mean it's right.
But it is still convenient, and even when you know it's wrong, you still can't stop doing it. That's
where the discipline comes in.
Yes,
that's where the discipline comes in. So you have to discipline yourself, or again, parents can help do this, because we know kids sit there and scroll from a very young age. I do think now I've seen a lot of parents do it themselves, which really annoys me. I've got friends and family who constantly post photos of their children, or say like, oh, he managed to tie his own shoelace today. I'm like, okay, that's great. Why have you posted it all over the internet? That to me, I don't get, because that to me is saying that they're on their phone 24/7. They've got their phone in their child's face. I'm like, no, you shouldn't be doing that. So they're basically just teaching them that, oh, this is your life. Okay, this is what you live by. I'm like, no, it's not. Again, I use my phone to show people photos, because we used to have photo albums, which I still have, because obviously. But, that to me, there is a lot of discipline around that. If you're going to have your phone around you 24/7, use it for the correct thing. Don't sit there scrolling and ignoring the people in the room. At dinner, put your phone down. If you've got guests around, talk to them. Don't sit there scrolling through Twitter. It's these simple things, but they do need a lot of discipline.
I struggle with this with my son, because sometimes I'm with him all day, right? Mm-hmm. And he sees me picking up my phone and scrolling, and he's learning that, I've never had this when I was growing up. He's learning this is just a staple in your life now. Even when I have the phone down and far away from me, he'll go off and get the phone and bring it to me. He goes, Mommy's phone. I'm like, oh shit, So
yeah,
being a mom, it's really difficult.
Yeah, but I agree with you, Helen. I do think it's because as kids, we didn't have that. We didn't have a phone that you could just pick up and scroll through. So we always watched our parents doing things and constantly busy, or watching a film. That was the sort of thing they did instead. They'd be glued to the telly instead of being glued to your phone. So I think it's just taken that generational step now that we're now glued to our phones because we're not glued to the television. Again, another discipline that I would advise with that is putting the radio on. So there are no screens involved at all. You have to listen to something. And because of that, your eyes are being directed elsewhere. So you can either look out the window, read a book, do some sewing, just drawing, anything. Because then you've still got media involved, but you're not physically scrolling. You don't have that grasp of control over it.
Good idea.
Yeah, this is kind of going off topic, but I did want to share this hack that I discovered recently. I don't know if it's true for all children, but I'm going on a little story here. I also have a 3-year-old, and she's really very talkative now. So she grasps purely conceptual things that I can talk about, and I'm really curious about exactly how she understands the world. So she's figured out how to tell lies if she wants to, and I wanted to really encourage her to understand that if she tells lies, people won't trust her, they won't believe her, and that I won't be able to tell if she's lying or not. So I tried to tell her that. She didn't understand. So I was like, okay, I know there's a story about this. It's called The Boy Who Cried Wolf. So I actually told the whole story of The Boy Who Cried Wolf, and she didn't get it at all. But she really liked listening to the story. Me reading a book is kind of interesting, but for her, me coming up with a story, she thought I was inventing the story. But for her, that was so fascinating. She kept telling me she wanted to hear me come up with another story just from my head. And I think that's a interesting discovery where she actually, and I think children in general, they love their parents so much, they just want you to talk to them face to face. There's, even with all of the cartoons that, yes, she does watch, she loves them, she still would rather hear my rubbish retelling of Boy Who Cried Wolf, even though she doesn't understand the actual moral story I was trying to teach her. I don't know if that's the other thing that I've, to come back to what Helen said about the phone, is that I know that I use it too much because I have to read my emails, and maybe I'm just making excuses, but I need to organize Women's Hour, and I need to use my phone for things. But I try to limit myself to just reading text, because she thinks reading is, she doesn't know how to read. She thinks reading is kind of boring. So as long as I'm not doing anything that looks interesting to her, she thinks my phone is still kind of boring, because it's just the rectangle that has some words on it. And
Yeah,
she asks
no,
what
I
I'm doing.
can relate to that. I can completely relate to that, because growing up, I hated reading. I didn't want to read. I found it boring. I couldn't get into a story. I couldn't get into a textbook, nothing. But I think, again, that was part of my school period where I was staring at textbooks 24/7. That's how we were supposed to learn, was copying from textbooks. And I hated it. And I think that actually had a very bad result, because I hated books up until now, where I'm quite happy to go and look at a book, because for me it's kind of like investigating. It's something new. If I open that book, what am I going to find, sort of thing. But when I was younger, because I hated books, my sister loved them, I had to find something else to do, because I can't sit still. I can't stare at a screen. And we had a computer, but it was a case of, certain amount of computer time, and that was when I was a bit older. So that's when I started drawing, making things, doing something else. So even if because again, a couple of the comments have been saying, oh, but if I put the radio on, I have to find something to do. I get fidgety. I get, which is normal. That's okay, because you're so used to doing something, because scrolling through your phone is essentially doing something, right? You're doing something with your hands physically. Yeah. Find something else to do. Learn something new.
Make some bread.
Even yeah, make some bread. Even if you're terrible at doing it, that's okay. You've all got to start from somewhere. Make it fun. That's absolutely fine. Find a random video on YouTube on how to make bread. I don't know, just anything. Just give it a go. There is no harm in learning something new if you do get fidgety. So just go for it. Anything. Just give it a go. Instead of sitting scrolling all day, put a podcast on, put the radio on. Go and read a new book.
I think the trouble is that people don't. It's not that there's a lack of things that people want to do. Like, there's things that people want to be doing with their lives. Like I said, they have a musical instrument they want to play. They have the instrument. They have the books to play it. They have they want to learn a language. They have Duolingo on their phone. But I guess I'm asking you for something impossible, which is, how do you make yourself do something when you don't want to do it? Right? Like,
I think it's motivation as well. And I've always struggled with motivation, trying to motivate myself, and especially if you've got a very long list of things to do, whether it's something new or old or something just in general that you have to do. I do think it comes down to motivation. And again, that definitely helps if you've got somebody with you who can help motivate you, or if you reward yourself at the end of it. So, even if you say, right, if I get this done, I'm going to have a biscuit with my cup of tea, something as little as that. And it is, I mean, I do it. I get pleasure from, 3:00, I'll have a cup of tea, I'll sit down for 5 minutes and I'll have a biscuit with my cup of tea, because that's my kind of reward to myself. Right. Put my feet up for 10 minutes, just relax. And that's something that I really enjoy doing. So if you're struggling to start, or you think, right, I'm not going to sit on my phone today, but I don't know where to start, that's okay. The first thing I would suggest to do is put the radio on, because the first thing you're going to do then is find a channel you're going to like. So that's going to take time as well, if you're flicking through all the channels and buzzing around, etc. And then once you've done that, either pick up a book or think, okay, what am I going to do? If you can't do that, go and put the kettle on, go and make a cup of coffee, find something relaxing to do. Avoid your phone. Just avoid it. You can take your time with these things. It's not a case of, right, drop your phone, I must find something to do instantly. Take your time. There is no harm in taking your time with things.
There's another obstacle. I think people are so flooded, they don't even know what they like. How are they going to find something that they like, right?
Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right there, Helen. That, to me, is down to the person.
Yeah, it's their homework.
Yeah. If they're not specifically looking things up to watch on their phone, if they do just scroll through random stuff and they don't know what they like, then I would suggest starting to investigate things. I never knew what I liked when I was younger. If you go back to your teenage years, you didn't know what you liked, whereas now we know what we like. There are certain hobbies that we enjoy, there are certain genres we enjoy, but that had to come from somewhere. So just make a start, explore. Even if you go to the local library, go out for a walk, find out what you like. Did you enjoy doing that? Okay, great. If you didn't enjoy doing that, okay, we'll push that aside. We'll try something else. It's literally the basics. And I know it sounds childish, but I do think that's where people have to go back to now.
I want to come back to what you said about having someone sort of holding you accountable. Having someone watching what you're doing actually is, even just that on its own, is motivation to not get too distracted. I think where I think like having an office layout where other people can see your screen is a good motivator for some people who work in an office, not to go to social media or whatever. People just see what you're doing. But in the home, I guess this is starting on another conversation, but I did just think, what is better? What is worse, I should say? Is it worse to have a spouse who's constantly nagging you to practice piano and clean the kitchen, or is it worse to have a spouse who puts up with you being worse than you really should be? Like when you're capable of doing more than you are, and you want to be better, I think as a couple, or even just as a friend, it's good to have people in your life who are in a good-natured, with a smile kind of way, encouraging you to stick to the habits that you want to have. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I think both of those points are right. There's a certain level, I think, before it goes to nagging. If you're being told more than once, then I think that person either needs to be pushed, especially if they know themselves, right, I need to get that done, but you're just full-blown procrastinating. You know you're procrastinating, and because they can see that you're procrastinating. So that to me is like, no, you need to be pushed. Like, come on, get this done. Once it's done, and then kind of doing that, it goes back to our How to Train Your Dragon video of the little rewards. So once they've done it, then be like, okay, I'll make you a cup of tea now you've done that. Or just saying, okay, do you want me to help with it? If they're having, everyone has off days. If you don't want to clean the kitchen top to bottom, then offer to help. I know women have a thing about men helping with housework, but even if you just say to them, okay, you make a pot of tea, sort of thing, that's one thing off your list. So you can just quite easily, if somebody is procrastinating to the point they are struggling to either make a start, nagging may have to be involved. If they're procrastinating to the point of they're physically struggling to do the task, offer help, offer a different way of doing it. There's definitely support needed in terms of it, but I wouldn't go as far as like, no, you have to do it, you have to do this now, because especially if you live with that person, you're going to know that person, you're going to know their limits. It's very important not to push somebody past their limits. So if you know that person well enough, not to do that.
With my husband, he's been asking me, Helen, is there anything I can do to help? Because I do pretty much 100% of the housework. And I just get him to do one small thing at a time, like prepare the coffee for tomorrow morning, or just put your socks in the hamper. Something very small. I mean, in a way, I'm kind of training him, but gently remind him, because he's showing a sign that he wants to become better in something, right? Mm-hmm. So I have to encourage it. If he fails, it's no big deal, right? Gently remind him, don't shame him. And even if he does that one small thing and it's really helpful, just let him know that is such a huge help. You have no idea. It's just a lot of positive reinforcement with that. Not shaming, not bullying.
Yeah, I think a really good way, again, for anyone who's struggling with tasks, okay, a really good way of tackling anything, let's use an example of you need to clean a room, okay? So, this isn't nagging. If you need to clean a room, this goes for the women as well, actually probably more the women. I find very large tasks quite daunting, like a lot of people. So I will look at that room and think, right, I call it pottering. So instead of going, oh, I've done this, and this today, oh, I've pottered around the house. And so it doesn't sound like you've done much. So you're pottering, you're doing little tasks here and there. But once you've done all those little tasks, one, it's less tiring because you're taking your time doing them, you're pottering about. And two, you don't realize how much you've actually done. Come the end of, by 3 o'clock cup of tea time, you sit there and you think, okay, I've still got that to do, but actually I've achieved quite a lot because you're just doing little bits. And again, that's a very good thing to use if you don't know what to do. Just start pottering.
I think there are men in the chat who are upset that the conversation is turned towards housework when that's not an ambition they've ever had for their life. But for women watching, they probably would like to have a tidier house and to learn how to make bread and to do these things. But for the men, I think their ambitions are probably more like, do 50 push-ups, go for a run or something.
Yeah, you know, pottering in terms of, okay, just do little things. If you want to do 50 push-ups, then that's little for you, then you go do that.
Okay, let's do a little role play. Like, what would you do if Alex said to you, Birdie, I really want to do 50 push-ups every day, and 9 a.m. rolls around, and I don't know, whatever. Like the day goes by, and you notice that he hasn't done his push-ups, and he hasn't even done one push-up. Are you gonna say, what's up? You're not going to do it today? You're starting tomorrow? Like you
okay.
Really knows what's going on here.
First thing I would do, Poe, with my ridiculously organized brain, if initially when he'd say that to me, I would first go, okay, so when do you want to start? If he wants to start tomorrow, today, whatever, so that I know. Secondly, do you want a specific time? Like, does he want to do them at 10 a.m.? So then I know the little details of what he's got planned out. Yeah. So that I know what he's got planned out, so that if it gets around to sort of 2 p.m. and he hasn't done it, then I'll drop a hint going, oh, didn't you want to start your push-ups today? I won't initially jump in and say, why haven't you done them? Why haven't you done them? You should have done them by now. I'd make a hint because he might have just forgotten. He might have been busy, etc., etc. So you drop a bit of a hint. You kind of go, okay, did you want to start them today? And then if he goes, yeah, but I don't really feel like it, then suggest, oh, do you maybe just do 25 for today? And then at least you've done some. And then chances are they might end up doing the full lot anyway, and just keep going with that kind of routine style way, if that makes any sense. Be supportive instead of, no, you have to do this. Instead of being condescending or basically making a point that, oh, you should have done it, telling them off that they haven't done it, find out why or help them along in doing it.
I think maybe you should tell him he looks sexy doing push-ups. I think I'm joking, but I think Jordan Peterson said that not in like a romantic relationship or in any kind of relationship, people, I think, undervalue how much they think that their words mean less than they do. So if you say, oh, I really like how you did that, or you look good today, that might just seem like you're stating the obvious to you, but to your partner or to your friend or to your family member, that actually comes like that stands out as like a high point in their day. It could, if they're not used to getting compliments like that, they'll really it'll make their soul sing to hear you say that. So I think that that positive reinforcement, I think, is really good. But I do. There's always excuses to not do the things that you're supposed to do, right? So you can go, okay, I'll do it in an hour, I'll do it in 2 hours, and then 2 hours comes around and go, okay, well, I'm tired now. I just ate a big meal. I'm not going to do it.
I think the worst thing, and I do it myself, I'm terrible. If I don't do a certain task that day, I will say, oh, I'll make up for it tomorrow. Tomorrow comes around, haven't done it, feel terrible. So if I tell myself that, I will basically make myself suffer. I will get up like an hour earlier. No lambda, it does not work in reverse. So I will basically do the opposite of the positive reinforcement. So if I've purposely told myself, oh, I'll make up for it tomorrow, then I've just given myself more work as it is. So I will make a point of myself knowing that I have given myself more work and it's my own fault that I have done that. So don't do it again kind of attitude. That works very well.
But also, okay, but if you're not gonna do 50 push-ups today, why on earth do you think you're going to be able to do 100 tomorrow? Like, isn't that just like pie in the sky, unrealistic expectation of yourself?
But I mean, Poe, let's go back to the male brain here. How many, especially Americans, thought they could fight a bear with their bare hands.
That's what I'm saying. It's like the person who thinks that they're capable of doing 100 a day maybe is only capable of doing like 1 a day.
Yeah. So that's why you need to kind of test them, but gently. Like, okay, let's go into this slowly and see what you're actually capable of, and then go from there.
Okay. What if there's no one in your life? I think that we've covered some good ground here. I want to cover, what if your ambitions are too embarrassing, or if you don't have someone in your life who wants to encourage you in that way? Is there something you can do on your own? To help? I think having a routine definitely helps, like doing something at the same time every day.
But being strict with it. Because I'm terrible with sticking to routines. I'm very, very bad at sticking to, I'm going to do this at a certain time.
Helen just told me she needs to go. We've been here for an hour. Thanks so much for joining us, Helen.
Sure. Thanks, guys. See you later.
Bye, Helen.
Have a good day. Bye. All right. We'll go for a little bit longer, just finish the point, but I don't want to go for too long today. And it has been an hour, but
it has, yeah.
I've read a book called The Power of Habit, and there's also another book that's like a pop psychology book called Atomic Habits. And these two books together, they do help understand like exactly what's happening in your brain when you form a habit, a good habit or a bad habit. My husband recommended I read The Power of Habit when I started pulling out hairs from my eyebrows. It looks pretty bad actually. My solution to this is to cover my hair with it. But it's the most bizarre thing in the world, right? Like when I stopped biting my nails, I found myself not having anything to do when I was feeling nervous or feeling bored or just feeling like agitated, like on edge. And I just started randomly pulling the eyebrows out of my face, which is just so weird. And I know that's the thing, is like I know it's weird when I'm doing it. I know I shouldn't do it, and yet there's this like big dopamine hit I get when when I manage to get a hair out, and I can't explain it. It doesn't make any sense. I know it's bad, and I should stop doing it. I had to I had to restyle my entire haircut to get around the fact that I only got half an eyebrow on one side, and it's just so I can't emphasize enough like how powerful habit is in life, and you can harness that to your benefit if you want to form a good habit. Understanding how a habit works in your brain, I think, really makes a big difference if you want to change your behavior and cultivate good habits and try to stop bad habits. So you can group habits together. Like if you always have coffee every day, then do the push-ups before you have coffee, basically. Like you don't get your coffee until you've done your push-ups, that kind of thing. So that would be my suggestion for anyone who wants to start something new or to do something every day.
Yeah, definitely. And again, it definitely comes down to that self-discipline. So, it's not a case of, you're telling yourself you have to do this, you have to do it now, because chances are you're just going to be like, no, because I feel like I'm telling myself off. You feel like it's a bad thing. So ingraining good habits over the top of bad ones, or I've had bad habits in the past, and the only way I've kind of broken them is by finding something else to do or weaning myself off it. So not going, completely cold turkey and like, right, I'm going to stop doing that. I've kind of gradually stopped, like being on my phone constantly. I will now sit on my phone in the evening. I have a little routine where I will, I'll sit on my phone for a couple of hours in the evening, which is still really bad. I know that it's a bad habit, but it's nowhere near as bad as it used to be. During the day, I don't touch my phone. It sits on a table in, the dining room or the living room. It's on silent. The amount of people who try and get hold of me during the day and get really annoyed because I don't answer my phone. When I go outside, I don't take my phone. I need to read this book now. You have to send me a link.
If you struggle with a bad habit, I think replacing a habit is something that talks about in The Power of Habit as well, where the most common thing you'll see people doing is like quitting smoking, right? It's not just the nicotine you're getting, because it is that, but it's also that it's like the moment where you're reaching for the cigarette.
Yeah, it's doing something with your hands.
Yeah, that too. And you see people who they replace it with like eating sunflower seeds, or they'll eat like they just want to do something, like I said, like they want to get something out, eat it, chew it, finish it, whatever. It's like you need to replace it with something. And I think in The Power of Habit, I think he said it's literally like impossible to remove a habit. Like you can only replace it, which is kind of which is kind of depressing when you think about it. Like once your brain is hooked on dopamine, there is no replacement for that.
Yeah,
hit.
I think it's ingrained in your character.
Yeah,
it's definitely ingrained in your character. You know, some people have great habits, but I mean, I've known people to be obsessed with running. Their habit is running, but they have been told to stop, you know, because it's such a habit for them. It's got to the point where they're really unhealthy and they're actually making themselves ill from doing it. Now, how do you tell that person that actually your habit is really bad for you? Because people initially will go, oh no, but running, you know, running's a good thing. Running's good for you. But if it's a habit to the point of you physically cannot stop, it's become a characteristic of that person, you're going to have to replace it with something. You know, that's going to be very difficult to do.
All right. Well, I'd like to bring the stream to a close. So we got the super chat from Lambda.
Oh.
He knew we were finishing the topic. For £5, thank you very much, Lambda. Thanks for the stream. A man's steps are from the Lord. How then can a man understand his own ways? Proverb 20:24.
That's where his wife comes in.
Yeah. How then can a man understand his own ways? I'll have to think about that one.
That's where his wife comes in, Per.
I wonder. Yeah, I think people are a mystery even to themselves. And they are definitely a mystery to their spouses. You know, I think cultivating good habits is the basis of having a good life and being a good person, and having a tidy house and having a good diet and everything that people value in their lives, having good relationships even. I think it can't be overstated how important it is to have good habits, whether that's from a scientific understanding of how the brain, you know, reacts to dopamine and that sort of thing. You can seriously just waste your life on TikTok if you don't break that habit. So anyone watching this who's waiting for motivation to improve their life, start by replacing your bad habits with, if not good habits, just ones that aren't as bad at least.
Yeah.
And I think telling other people in your life, like, please hold me accountable for this. Like, you're not hiring them to be your life coach, but just tell them, like, if you see, like, if I tell you I'm quitting eating donuts and you see me eating a donut, that's going to make me feel bad, right? So tell people what you're quitting, so they'll know when you do it.
Definitely. I mean, I've more than once said to Alex, he'll give me that side eye, and I'm like, I know I'm doing it again. It's a really bad habit, and I'll point blank say it's a bad habit, so that I know in myself, right, you've acknowledged it's a habit, and he knows as well that it's a bad habit. So then you can either work together, and if not, if the first thing is acknowledging that it's a bad habit. That's the best thing to do, is acknowledge that the thing you're doing is not okay.
Yeah, Wamen Hour is the best habit to have. Every Friday, 9 o'clock, watch Wamen Hour. Or catch up on a Saturday morning when you're eating your breakfast and enjoying a lion.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think that, I don't know like how at what point it becomes toxic, but I feel like in a relationship, maybe it's especially for a woman, having that judgment from your spouse feels so bad. Like it feels so much worse than even the whole world. Like even if the whole world is against me, I wouldn't feel as bad as my husband being ashamed of me.
Well, yeah, I mean, in some ways I agree with that. In other ways, I'm kind of like, if I'd already admitted that was really bad, and then they then tell me, I wouldn't feel as bad, because I'm like, no, okay, I obviously need help with this. So if they're acknowledging something that's bad, then I don't feel as bad, because at the same time, if they're your husband, they're supposed to be there for you too. You know, I'd quite happily tell Alex if he's got a bad habit and be like, okay, that's not okay. You need to cut back on that, or for their own benefit. So I'd want him to do the same to me.
Yeah. All right. Well, do you have any other closing thoughts, or shall we leave it at that?
I think we could go on forever, Poe, but
definitely
going back to the actual topic, self-discipline is a main thing for this, in terms of scrolling through TikTok, watching terrible things for no apparent reason. Use the internet as a tool. Search for things you actually want to see, I think is the first step. And if you want to go on from that, then turn your screen off completely. Don't even watch it. You can listen to it, that's fine, but move on from that. You can do this. Less screen time.
Yeah, I think unless you're watching Wamen Hour, in which case
you could still just listen to Wamen Hour.
Watch them all twice. Why not? You'll catch things you didn't get the first time.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Watch it the first time. Realize it's a bad habit to watch the screen all the time, and then put it on in the background whilst you're learning something new. There you go.
Yeah. As for recommendations, we haven't had any today. We've actually kind of dried up topics because I keep getting recommendations for my new show, The P.O. Box, which is where I talk about movies with my husband and with guests. So we got halfway through watching Metropolis tonight, and I'm absolutely loving that. What a wild, crazy film that is. So we'll be doing that on the next P.O. Box, so look out for that. A film from 1927, a silent picture with like title cards and everything, but the absolute most amazing cinematography and set design that you've ever seen. Absolutely, I'm so shocked that I love this film as much as I do. And so look out for that. I'm also watching Inuyasha, which will be once I finish watching 100 episodes of that, we'll be reviewing that. And if you have any more recommendations, I think Wrath of Khan is another one we've got on there. So plenty of recommendations for the movie stream PO Box, but we've dried up on Wamen Hour suggestions. I believe nobody won the auction this today because I didn't know. Maybe because I didn't try to encourage it. I forgot to do my patter at the beginning. But anyway, we'll be doing more topics chosen by myself in the future, I suppose, coming up on Wamen Hour. You don't know what you're going to get. But I do have a female member of the clergy of my local village who has agreed to come on to do a little interview with me if I can just figure out what to talk to her about. So she's quite an elderly lady. She's now retired, but she does still work in the church, especially when they need an extra someone extra to run the services. And she's very intelligent, and being quite advanced in years, I think she'll have a lot of wisdom to share about Christianity, about how to live a good life, and who knows what else. So if you have any questions for her, do leave a comment, because I'm not sure what I'm going to ask her yet. I just know I want to talk to her. Clergy, if you don't know what that means, Jay, just means that she she's a vicar or a curate or one of the other many titles you can have in a church. I don't really understand. Clergy is an umbrella term meaning all of those things.
Where's Lambda? He'll be able to.
I think he checked out when we said that we were we'd finished the stream.
The one time we need him to clarify something.
Figure out what. Yeah. Well. Thanks everyone for joining us. Have a good weekend. Look out for the PO Box, and all the best to you, Birdie. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Good night, everyone.